and welcome to the Growth Whisperers Podcast, where everything we talk about is about a passion we have for building enduring great companies. To the point where people talk about selling a company, we're like, what are you doing? I had a conversation with a CEO the other day, Brad, that I'll tell you about later, but it was like, he was talking about selling. I'm like, there's got to be a way you don't have to sell, because he doesn't really want to. So that's what this podcast is about. I'm Kevin Lawrence here in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, and I'm joined as always with Brad Giles in Perth, Australia. Brad, how is the world treating you today?
Awesome. I love the way that you've told a story before you even said hello.
I can't even help. I can't help myself because literally, I was talking to the CEO, and he goes, at the end of the day, we're going to work out some stuff, and we're just going to probably figure out how we can sell the business. I'm like, whoa. Why? And he explained some complications with shareholders. I'm like, there's got to be a way. It's an amazing company. I would say it's very close to a great organization. It's absolutely enduring. And to me, it'd be a crime to sell it. It's like, why wouldn't you keep it in the family for decades? Aside from the fact that the family has a hard time getting along sometimes, but that's true of all family businesses anyway. So it reminded me as we were opening up. So we're going to dig into part 2 today of Mr. Building Enduring Great Companies, Jim Collins. But before we do, Brad, you got a word or a phrase of the day you want to share with where your mindset's at today?
Well, I had one and you just threw it off. So mine is don't sell. It's don't sell. Like no.
Did you have that before?
I didn't. But we work with entrepreneurs and CEOs and leaders all the time. And for many people, selling or exiting, they seem to think that is a key part of what you must do. But experience tells you that great companies are built over a long period of time, and that flywheel momentum doesn't necessarily happen. You don't start a company and sell it. That's a deal maker. That's not a business builder.
Yes. Well said. I heard someone the other day, and I'll look up the quote, and they were, I will pull this one up, and it was, did I save it on my phone? You know, you see these quotes on social media and stuff. Yes. This is the, this is, I remember his name. This is it's Francois Henry Benehimis, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. I'm sure I did. He's CEO of the luxury watchmaker Amadeus Piguet. AP watches are some of the most famous watches. They're some of the most premium priced. And a quote from him: "The board of directors, meaning the family members, have never asked me in my 11 years for any growth percentage terms ever," he said. "They have never said, 'Francois, we want 10 or 15% or more.' No. They say, 'Francois, we still want to be around 200 years from now.'" Right? That is the mindset of an Now, they've already been around for, I think, at least 100 years. And it is one of the most premium sought after brands of watches in the market right now. You know, supply outstripping demand to the point where, for those that aren't into watches, you know, the secondary market, these watches are selling for 2, 3, 4 times their original value. Like the store value, if you could buy one in store in a waiting list 3 years. But yeah, they're talking about 200 years. And that's what we're about. So my word of the day, I think I've already had 4,256 words in this opening.
Didn't notice it.
Like I'm drinking some tea. And maybe I thought it was decaffeinated, but it might be caffeinated.
Tell us a story about the tea before we get to Jim Collins.
Well, no, I'm not going to go there. I do have a great story about tea.
What's your word of the day?
Yeah. You know, I've thrown you off. You thrown me off. My word of the day is passion.
Yeah.
I'm full of it right now. Talking about these principles, I get fired up. It's why I do what I do. I want to be a part of building enduring great organizations. And so it's passion. Awesome. Don't sell, passion. So should we talk about the episode?
Let's do that. That'll be nice. So
Okay.
last week, in last week's episode, last week being 160, we spoke about rating your firm on Jim Collins' 7 good to great principles. We couldn't fit it all into one, so we're carrying that over to this week. Last week, of the 7, we spoke about the first 3. First one, of course, being, this is from Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, in case I hadn't fully confirmed that. So the first one was level 5 leadership. The second one was first who, then what. And the third one was confront the brutal facts. Now this week, we've got 4 to go through. I think we don't need to go through the first 3, Kev. We went through them in great detail. They're pretty self-explanatory. Now, this week, we start off with this idea of the hedgehog concept. So this comes from a Greek parable about the hedgehog and the fox. Of course, the job of the fox is to eat the hedgehog, and the job of the hedgehog is to not be eaten. And the fox has many different tactics and strategies and all of these different things that the fox tries to do so he can eat the fox, or she can eat the hedgehog, pardon me.
Hedgehog, yeah.
Yep. And yet the hedgehog has one very simple strategy, and it works every single time. And that is to bend over. When the hedgehog bends over, the spikes come out, and it's maybe not undefeatable, but it stops all of the ideas and the tactics that the fox has. And that's the parable, or that's the metaphor for the hedgehog concept. It is the one single thing that helps us to win every time.
And it's so basic and simple, where the fox itself gets distracted and runs around in circles and tries things. The hedgehog has one basic move. And if we look at enduring great companies, they keep it incredibly simple. And this hedgehog principle helps people to do that. So in the hedgehog, go ahead, Brad.
And why is that important? Why is it important to have one single move? Because entrepreneurs are, by their very nature, creative. Marshall Goldsmith wrote a book called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. Okay. And basically the creativity that gets an entrepreneur to take risk, start a business, and to solve all of these problems all along the way, if it's not kept in check, what can happen without this discipline of the hedgehog is that suddenly they say, hey, Kev, I've got a good new idea. How about if we start selling liquor? Or what about if we could start trading horses, or maybe we could start a motor car manufacturing company.
Or build a rocket ship.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Or open up a business in Africa, and then maybe we'll go to Russia at the same time.
Yeah, that is all born of the great creativity that we love about entrepreneurs. But the problem is that the profit doesn't stick when people
get distracted.
People get distracted.
People are pulled in too many directions versus a few things that matter. Yeah. So it's taking infinite creativity and boiling it down into a few core things to focus on and build discipline.
Yeah.
So there's 3 elements of a hedgehog. It's what can you be the best in the world at? Like, what are your core, almost your best competencies? What are you passionate about? Or what is your purpose as an org, to use Jim's language? And what's your profit per X? How do you actually make your money? And where should you be looking at driving things to notably improve your profitability per whatever metric you use it against? For what widget or what item do you look at it against? And you put these 3 together, and it just boils down your business real simply. And at the center of it all, or at the core, sits your BHAG. Your BHAG should be born from what you can be amazing at, what you're passionate about, and what makes you money. The best BHAGs fit right into there.
Yeah.
And the key is you share. Go ahead, Brad.
I guess I like to visualize it as we're looking through a window in the center of that Venn diagram. If we maintained the discipline around those 3 areas for 10 to 30 years, what could our BHAG be? What could our big, hairy,
Yes.
audacious goal be?
What's possible? The key is if we stayed focused on those things, and people get distracted like crazy. So it's simple, and we know that simplicity scales. And, and again, operationally in companies that we work with, we use it as a touchstone. We go back and look at our hedgehog regularly. We use it to help us build the BHAG, but we use it as a touchstone to remind us what is our business.
Yeah.
So that whatever we do needs to fit into it. And to quote, the great Jim Collins again, one of his quotes I just loved. He said, "Success isn't about creativity. To be creative, that's to be human. Success truly is relentless execution of the boring basics within the hedgehog." He goes, that's it. If you're focused on exciting, sexy things, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
It's because at the end of the day, what does the customer want? Usually it's pretty simple. There's some simple basic things. And if you master those consistently, which is darn hard.
Yeah.
And as an example, to this hedgehog, one of my clients that I got called in, probably working with this client a couple of years. He had done some deep strategy work with a very prestigious strategy consultant, was well known in his part of the CEO community. This person was known to do great work. And with all due respect, I looked at the work. From a strategy perspective, it was okay. I don't think it was great, but it was very, very complex. So after spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on a strategy consultant, coming up with very complex work, they couldn't execute it. They couldn't boil. And finally, I said to the CEO, I said, look, just let one of my team go in there. They will figure it out and find a way to simplify it in the way that we make strategy really simple and execution of it easy or easier. Anyways, it took a period of a few months, and one of my team went in and worked with them and dramatically simplified it. And now they can execute it, and it's much easier for them to win. But the org was stuck because, and maybe the strategy was brilliant. I don't think it was, but maybe it was, maybe I didn't understand it. That could be. But it was too damn complex to get the organization to rally around and get it done. So it didn't matter. It wouldn't, even if it was brilliant, it wouldn't work because it couldn't get executed. Now, to do that, to have insanely simple strategy, goes back to principle 1 of level 5 leadership. It takes a hell of a lot of humility to have your strategy look like a kindergartner came up with it, right? And that's what the best stuff is, because then it scales, but it insults the intellect of some. So then they want to go for more robust, complex, and that's hard. So anyway,
smart people intuitively want to make things more complex, because they believe that that is where the sophistication and success is born, and the value, and that's okay. But anyone can make it more complex. But the true art is making it simpler, and that simpler is how we bring it back to the hedgehog, and why that is just so important. I was on an all hands call with a company in the last couple of days, and they were reviewing the strategy, all of the components of the strategy. And one of them, of course, was the hedgehog. What they said at the end of that is, let's go to the team, because it was all hands and it was all online on a Zoom call. And all of the team were saying, what do you think about the whole call? Give us some feedback. And a couple of the people said, we love the fact that there are these central principles that aren't changing, that we know what we've got to do. We're reinforcing them and we know where we're going. But over time, we're gaining a deeper understanding into all of the nuances that support those broader principles.
Yep.
So let's ask ourselves, how do we assess? This is what we did in the last episode, and we're doing it again, because really we're asking ourselves, these are the 7 principles. How do we rate ourselves? So as you consider your hedgehog, 0, we don't have 1 at all, and 10, there's simply no other work that we could do. Remember, it's not only just about having it and having it documented and maybe having it on the wall, but is it informing your decisions every day, every week? Is it connected to all of the parts of the strategy? Does it really clearly tell us what to say no to? So maybe rate yourself 0 to 10 on the how you're leveraging the power of this principle.
Awesome. Let's move on. We could probably do an episode on each of these. There's so much here, but let's move on to number 5, a culture of discipline. In the root of Collins's model, and his initial model in Good to Great, is disciplined people who engage in disciplined thought, who take disciplined action, and all of that spools up the flywheel. And, it calls it operating with freedom within a framework of responsibilities. And the idea is that people in these companies, he found in his research, they didn't have jobs, they had responsibilities. They're responsible for making something happen. And I shared earlier that quote from Jim, relentless execution of the boring basics within your hedgehog. And that's what success is and what creates that. And, what's interesting is I look at this, it's, one of the CEOs that we work with, he finally got that. And he went in and looked at his business through this lens. And he goes, we had the opposite of a culture of discipline. We had a culture of bureaucracy. Everything was getting slow and cumbersome. And what they realized is when we started to dig in, all the policies were made with underperforming players in mind. It was to protect everyone from the weak, not to empower the amazing. And they realized they had to do a whole rebuild on a lot of stuff and dramatically gut out the bureaucracy. And unfortunately, the A players didn't like it, but all the C's or the lower performers could sit there and grind it away. So at the end, they had to really rethink their view of people, rethink, their talent, philosophy, and tools, and then gut out the bureaucracy that was killing them and replace that with better people and lighter systems.
Oh, there is so much to unpack there. We could do a podcast episode just on one or two of the points, especially your policies protecting the weak. But one of the things that you said really lightly there, but is so powerful, is Jim Collins and his research team identified at one point the differences in the mindset of the people in the good versus great companies. The good companies believed that they had a job, whereas the great companies, they believe that they have a responsibility. And so that's the quick and dirty assessment that you could do, asking your team if they've got a job or a responsibility. Don't obviously ask it directly, but asking it indirectly.
Just ask them, what's your role? I do this with you. So what's your role here? And if they want to tell me their title versus I'm responsible for it, you get very different answers in different organizations when you ask this.
That's the key. That's the key, isn't it? This is, and if they don't, I don't think it's out of the realms of possibility to get people to change their mindset and take that responsibility. Certainly a job to do, but that's the essence of a culture of discipline. That's good.
Yes. So go ahead, Brad. I want you to wrap up that piece and we'll move on. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's assess your company. 0 to 10. 0. We have 0 on this. We have nothing. 10. We certainly couldn't do any better. Rate your firm on a score of 1 to 10. How well are you leveraging the power of this principle, culture of discipline? That is, disciplined people who engage in disciplined thought and who take disciplined action, operating with freedom within a framework of responsibilities. Or as Kev put it, a relentless execution of the boring basics within your hedgehog.
Awesome. Number 6, technology acceleration. And in this world of technology and all that other stuff, this is a big one these days. People think technology is the answer. And then they burn $5 or $10 million. If they're a startup tech company, even my gosh, it's hard. Technology is hard, but usually it's, again, the mindset and the view of it. And in technology acceleration, technology is used as an accelerator of momentum. So the momentum is there and it adds on versus the creator of it. And here's the example I like to give. if you can't run a system on a basic Google sheet or spreadsheet, don't freaking automate it. Period. Full stop. You know, one of the execs that we worked with in a company, she was brought in, she worked for Walmart. She ran a multi-billion-dollar P&L for Walmart and buying and in the buying part of the business. They ran it on Google Sheets.
Yeah.
Literally on Google Sheets is how they managed it. So I believe in technology. It's awesome. But what people think is technology is the solution to get momentum and to make it work. No, once it's working, it can enhance it and give you some extra data, extra insight, save time, save errors, a lot of stuff. But it isn't the magic answer people think that it is. And we see this in like implementations of Salesforce or ERPs or CRMs. You know, it's a management tool that Salesforce doesn't drive sales on this. You know, Salesforce does much more than sales management, but it doesn't drive sales. It gives a manager and the team ability to communicate better and gather information and have some good reminders and systems. But it itself doesn't drive sales. It enables awesome salespeople that are well trained to potentially sell more. I don't even know if that's true. But we don't need to get into that debate. So
I think it should be true. I think it should be true because that's the principle that we're talking about, right? It's not technology acceleration. It's not solving problems. It's accelerating momentum. Okay. Yes. It's not the genesis or the creation of momentum. We're going to start with nothing and we will create momentum because we've implemented Salesforce, and we're not picking on Salesforce. It's just a software program that everybody knows. Instead, we could say we have a high performing sales team who are currently using Google Sheets. If we switch the management of that sales process and the recording of that data, which is working really, really well, over to a CRM like Salesforce, will it accelerate momentum? That's the
brilliant example, Brad. Thank you for a great example. If we have a low performing sales team, Salesforce or any software application isn't going to fix it.
Yeah.
If we have a high performing sales team and automate and give them technology, it'll help them to be more. But fixing an underperforming sales team is an underperforming sales team. That's a management issue. Wonderful. We have another podcast that we did on how software can't replace management. We did that probably 50 episodes ago. I remember that.
That was a good one. That was a good talk. Yeah. So a CEO that I would say I know, I don't work with over here. She was saying how they used to hire copywriters all the time. They got a very effective process. It works really, really well. But we all know that artificial intelligence is a big deal now, and a lot of people are switching over to that. But they're saying, what she said to me is we haven't hired a copywriter in 9 months because we're migrating and gaining the technology acceleration through those tools.
Yes, wonderful. So to self-assess yourself on a scale of 0 to 10, how well do you live the principle that technology accelerates your momentum versus believing or operating like it would solve the problem and create momentum? So have a good system in a manual format, a spreadsheet, a who knows what, and technology will enhance that amazing system versus you got a broken system, let's get software or technology to fix it.
Because then you got a broken system with new software.
Yes, because you end up implementing the brokenness. You need to figure out the solution to the brokenness first. That's the same thing happens is that, you know, when you do, like, again, I'll go back to a CRM or a Salesforce implementation. When the IT department does it and they get all excited about it versus having the end users involved consistently, people get in, you know, technology is hard. Like, it's really, really hard. But let's move on. Flywheel and the doom loop. We have done episodes on this before. And the root of it is that the flywheel is this piece of mass that you get your business, you get momentum, and it goes faster and faster and faster, and building up more and more power based on hundreds and thousands of little inputs. And if you understand your flywheel and you can build it, it's talked about in Good to Great. And Jim has a tool or a separate book called Turning the Flywheel. Little red book is a guide to it and understanding what really drives your business. If you understand it and it's truly a tight flywheel, it becomes a focus for all your strategic decisions. And in the companies that we work with, it drives our strategy. It drives our investment decisions in the companies we work with. One I work with in India, we've been using it probably they went and did a private session with some other CEOs of Jim probably 7 or 8 years ago, roughly. And they've been using it ever since. And so in every quarterly or semi-annual, annual meeting, they look at the flywheel and they've nailed it. This is their second iteration after they first locked it. And they red, yellow, green it on how healthy it is. And to know, and it's a dead representative of where the business is strong and weak and where they're on and off strategy. And they break it down. They're all around India. They break it down by location. And so when we get the reports from the location heads, they show us how they're red, yellow, green, and then they identify how they improved certain points and what they're going to do next. But it really is like a guide to building to continue to build that momentum in your business that technology can help to automate. It's just amazing. And I probably got 10 examples on flywheel because it's such a core driver in our clients. But Brad, you probably got something you want to share in there too.
Yeah. So the episodes that we've recorded, 117. The biggest problem with most flywheels is a 2-part, and then episode 118. So if you're interested to dig into flywheels, you can go back and listen to those Growth Whisperers episodes. Yeah, flywheel. Look at the Amazon flywheel. It's timeless. They built it in 2001, when this research was being conducted by Jim Collins, and it's a part of this book. And you look at it today, and it still makes sense. It's still perfectly legit because it's logical, and it's how they've scaled to be one of the biggest organizations in the world. For us, we have firms where we've got KPIs for each of the parts of the flywheel. Let's say you've got 5 parts to your flywheel. We ask, what are the things that drive that? Yeah, we're doing the red, yellow, green as well around them, but also we're saying, how do we measure? How do we know what are the parts that need to be all green for that component to be green there? The flywheel and the doom loop is the 7th of 7 principles in Good to Great. Understanding that we haven't really touched on the doom loop, but it's the inverse of the flywheel. It's where people.
Go ahead, Brad.
Where companies don't achieve results, people become disengaged, and then new fads or new things are brought in that aren't disciplined, aligned around a hedgehog or something of that nature. A key to success. They're just new fads. And then funnily enough, they don't work. And so the company spirals downwards.
Instead of getting back to the core disciplines and the root cause and the brutal facts, they just start slapping lipstick and paint on everything. They try and hype stuff up and they don't fix the core ugly problems. It's like if they had a rotten board on their house, they just try to fill it and paint over it versus getting it ripped out and replaced. And then they wonder why it doesn't work. It's awesome. So the 4 we've covered today, we've covered
just rate yourself. Sorry, Kev. Just make sure that you rate yourself 0 to 10 on the flywheel.
How clear are you on your flywheel? How regularly are you focusing on it? And is it driving your strategic decisions? I mean, ideally, and is it all green or delivering to what the KPIs say it should be?
Momentum.
So, exactly. And you can feel the momentum building. The hedgehog concept, 3 circles of simplicity. Number 1. Number 2, the culture of discipline, relentless execution of the boring basics. Technology is a wonderful accelerator of good things that are happening in your business. You don't look at it as the problem solver. And then finding the flywheel and doom loop. You are building momentum in your business because you know your flywheel and you're fueling your flywheel.
Awesome. Well, I hope that you have enjoyed this 2-part series, rating your firm on Jim Collins' 7 Good to Great Principles. There's so much to unpack there, but we just thought that, these principles would add value, get you to think differently, get you to rate, and therefore identify the opportunities. So again, hope you've enjoyed the episode. If you are so interested, you can find us on YouTube by searching the Growth Whisperers. And if you're watching us on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, some of the great results that we see in listener engagement happen when you actually rate us. So we'd really appreciate it if you're enjoying the episode to rate us either on YouTube or on where you get your podcasts. If you'd like to find out more about Kevin, you can find that and information about his weekly newsletter, which is pretty awesome, at lawrenceandco.com. And for myself, you can find information about us at evolutionpartners.com.au, and obviously our newsletter, which comes out weekly as well. Hope you've enjoyed the episode and look forward to chatting to you again next week. Have a great week.